Welcome to the Texas Talks podcast. I am your host, Brad Swale. Today, I'm with Representative Salman Bhojani of HD 92. He immigrated to Texas as a teenager, worked several minimum wage jobs to help support his family. He went on to become a business owner, an attorney, a Euless city councilman, and now, as I mentioned, he's a Texas state representative. Representative Bhojani, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
I've only heard good things about you, Representative, so I'm excited to talk to you. I think you have a really interesting history and backstory. I think in a way, I don't know, sort of the American dream, especially for an immigrant, I would say. Is that correct? Is that a fair assessment?
I'm honored. Absolutely. It's been a great journey so far.
So you are originally you were born in Pakistan?
I was, yes.
Okay. And so I didn't know if you were, I know that you immigrated here, but I think you spent some time in Canada. Is that right?
I did, yeah. When I was 10 years old, my parents decided to move to Montreal, Canada, for a better life, better education, better business opportunity. And so I tagged along, with a new culture, new climate, new weather, new friends. It was a tough challenge, but, when life throws curveballs at you, you make lemons out of it and try to move on and do a really good job, whatever you can.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you did. Can I ask why? I mean, you better education, stuff like that. What was it? What was the climate in Pakistan that your parents were immigrating from?
It was relatively hot. It wasn't.
I mean, not weather necessarily.
Oh, okay. Sorry. The climate in terms of government is really bad. Yeah, I mean, I still remember the day that we left Pakistan. That the day was it was difficult. 11 of us were leaving. There were 21 people in our household. 11 of us were leaving with about 22 bags, 2 bags each, and there was a curfew on that day. So there were people burning tires on the street, and with that, no vehicles were allowed to drive. And my father, luckily knew someone that brought 2 safety vehicles, armored vehicles, and one was with us 11, and then one with all the bags. And so we were able to safely go to the airport. But that's the day I remember my dad telling me that where he's so glad that he's leaving Pakistan because the political climate and the economic climates were not really good at that time.
So what? I'm sorry, I'm not really well versed on the history of Pakistan, especially. I mean, really at all. What was going on? Why would y'all need armored vehicles? I mean, I guess some sort of uprising, some sort of riots.
Yeah, there's always been uprising. Unfortunately, in Pakistan, there more than I think it's been 70, 80 years since independence, and it's been under martial law more than it's been under democracy. And it's been really unfortunate that politicians have come in and really tried to reap the benefits for themselves as opposed to the common people. And that's what's been really plagued with corruption. And not everybody's that way. I want to sort of let you know, but it's
of course.
Most people are that way, and it's unfortunate that they are so corrupt that the economy is not doing well. And if you have connections, then you can get stuff done. The tax system is plagued with people don't pay their taxes, and there's just a lot of things like that make the country not as stable.
Yeah. So, I mean, coming from, I think you were 10, is that right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you probably have, I remember some things from my childhood before I was 10. You probably heard a lot of stories from your parents. I'm sure you keep some tabs on what's going on in Pakistan. So, I mean, it sounds like you have some real personal experience of what it's like when governments fail, or,
mm-hmm.
There's a lot of oppression and corruption and stuff like that. I'm really interested to hear sort of how that informs how you act as a state representative.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've never thought about it actually, because when you're persevering through multiple jobs and trying to make ends meet as a family, as a sort of person in the head of household, you're not really thinking about policy at that time. And so when I was in Pakistan, I didn't think too much about politics because I was just 10 years old. I did things kids 10 years old age do. But I got more politically involved in 2016 when we elected our former president. And that's what made me realize that, okay, we don't have a seat at the table. We don't have rhetoric that is more compassionate. We have a lot of hate and hate against immigrants, hate against people that pray like me. And that's what made me more political. Otherwise, throughout my journey before then, I was not really involved in any way.
Yeah.
It is more important to immigrate to this country, to really do good well, provide for my family, put food on the table, get financially sound and stable, and then, you will think about anything else.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're referencing, obviously the election of Donald Trump and I guess some of his rhetoric, for instance, I guess like the Muslim ban, that sort of thing,
Right.
preventing,
Right.
stopping Muslims from, coming to the country.
Yes.
So, I mean, and you're a practicing Muslim, I'm wondering, you also were out, sort of small town Texas, right?
Yes.
What was that? I mean, it seemed like you sort of established yourself as not only a business person, but a pillar of the community in a lot of ways. Um, and then you get politically active. So what was that time like in 2016 when you were experiencing that stuff?
Yeah, it was. So that election, the night of the election, was a long night. When we woke up, we found out who had been elected, and at that time my kids were really, really young, and so we were going through this process, and I was explaining to them, how will this person that preys on the divisiveness of American society lead a great nation, right? What values that brought me to America, and where my kids are born, where I want to spend the rest of my life, were just at odds with I felt what was my values and why I came here, and so we had a long conversation that day, and it was grim. But then we got going, to drop the kids to school, go back to work, do all the chores that we had to do. And so, again, went back in the rat race, so to speak, in November. And then not until January 2017, when he got elected and instituted the Muslim ban. I think one of the first executive orders he issued was a Muslim ban from 7 Muslim countries. And I felt like that was unconstitutional as an attorney. I was an attorney then, right? And I felt like that is a guaranteed right in the Constitution. Why would somebody discriminate against my faith? And that's when made me really, really upset. And I went to the airport, the DFW airport, and there were people detained solely because they were Muslims from those countries. And I felt like this is not right. So I fought against them, and then we were able to sort of bring them out that day. So I felt like I had won a battle, but that war was still going on. And the next 4 years are just going to be, this is just a teaser for what the next 4 years are going to look like if I don't do anything about it. And so I was reminded of what Mahatma Gandhi once said, that be the change that you want to see in the world. And so I felt like I can't crib up or just cry about it or be upset about something if I'm not helping to make that change possible. And so that's when I threw my name in the hat. I was already serving on the park board in my city of Euless. So Euless is a 16 square mile city with 60,000 people, and it has 17 parks. And one of the reasons that I moved to Euless was because of the beautiful park system it has. And so I served as soon as I got out of law school in 2013, I applied to the Euless City Council to serve on the park board, and I got accepted in 2014. So I'd already been serving for a couple of years there, and I felt like the next logical step would be to graduate my services and serve on the Euless City Council. There was not an open seat. I just felt like I had to do something, and so I put my name in the hat and received a lot of Islamophobia at that time, and actually lost by 200 and something votes, election day. And I was really, really sad, I remember, but I said, okay, I need to continue on with that. And so 2018, I ran again.
Yeah. So, it sounds like, you immigrate to the country, you make yourself, you pull yourself up, and, like I said, you worked several jobs to support your family. Certainly an admirable thing to do. Is there something inside you? So you applied for to be on the Parks Board before 2016, right? So it sounds like you have something inside you that you have a desire to serve, right? Where does that come from?
I think that comes from my faith and from my family. Like my mom has always said, leave this planet better than you found it. You give back to the community whenever you are able to. And that's what my faith also teaches me, that I've been a recipient of a lot of help during when I came to America. Like you talked about, right? I worked minimum wage jobs, and let me put that in perspective. I was a stalker at Walmart. So I stocked medicine and things on the shelf and fronted them whenever people would end up pick it up and stuff. At $6 an hour, $8 an hour, I worked at a gas station mopping floors. And so it was really a tough time at that time, right? Because when you're working at $6 an hour, mopping floors and cleaning restrooms, that's not a really happy moment or proud moment for anybody. But I just had to do whatever it took to put food on the table and support my family. But a lot of people helped me at that time. So it's always been on my mind that I need to pay it forward, right? I may not be able to help those same people that help me because they're doing much better than I'm doing, but I need to pay it forward to other people that may not have the same opportunity. I've lived the American dream, right? From just a clerk or a Walmart stalker to an attorney to a city council member, and I felt like at that time I was on the park board, and I felt like I need to give back, and so that's what made me give back. Another part of it was Representative Rafael Anchia. He's from Dallas. So when I was at SMU Law School in the evening program, I did a 4-year evening program. So in the morning I would run my businesses, in the evening I went to law school. And in my third year, I got an internship at Haynes and Boone, which is a big law firm in Fort Texas, and they have 600 attorneys all over the world. And I sat right next to Representative Rafael Anchia at that time. And so he tells me that, hey, once you become an attorney, it behooves you to give back to your community. And one way you can do that is by serving on a board or commission in your city. And so he's the one that pointed me to that direction. And so I looked at different boards and commission. I felt, hey, parks is why I moved here. Let me serve on that. And that's how I thought about this.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, sort of move to your experience as a Texas state representative. You're a freshman representative. You are, I think it happened at the same time, but maybe there's one other person. You're not the first Muslim, but maybe the second, or like you tied for first.
Muslims, yeah. First Muslim and first South Asian ever elected in the history of the state of Texas.
Yeah. So
at the same time, yeah.
So what you get sort of you wanted the job, you won it. What was the, you get in there. What's the learning curve like? What is the, what was that like being a freshman representative?
It was incredibly amazing. This is one of the best things in my life that I've been able to serve in the Texas State Legislature. It was very difficult. The learning curve was really steep. So think about it. This November, I win, and I've not paid attention to my work, my family. I've just been knocking on doors. We knocked on 50,000 doors.
Whoa.
Raised almost $1 million, and got 58% of the vote during the election. And so I'm catching my breath, and then all of a sudden I need to hire staff. I'm moving to Austin for the next 6 months. We're getting an apartment, just trying to see how to set up or pick an office. And you get nothing until January 10th, which is when the day that I got sworn in, right? So your office comes in at that time, your parking spot, your floor seat, your staff members. My furniture was literally coming in 3 weeks after I was sworn in.
Oh,
so it's very difficult. And then you're asked to file bills. That's how you represent your community, and you're all at the same time trying to run a business, because it's not, a state representative makes $600 a month. And by the time you take out taxes and insurance, I owe state more money than I get. So it's there's so much things that you're juggling, as a state, especially a new state representative, because everybody else, you're just came in the party. Everybody else knows each other from long time, right? So
sure. For
me, it's really important to build a relationship, because I know that I've been successful today because of the relationships that I built. And to me, it didn't matter if you're from Republican Party or Democratic Party or independent or on the fringe right or on the fringe left. To me, it doesn't matter. Every state representative and state senator is elected because they want to do good for their community, and they want what's best for Texas. We may disagree on how to get there, but that's okay. To me, it didn't matter, because each of them had a family, each of them had a story for why they got elected. So I went out and aggressively took a lot of selfies with state representatives and senators, and I posted on my website. You can find some selfies as well over there. So I've taken a selfie with almost every single state rep and state representative, or state rep and state senator. That allowed me to sort of really get to know them better and connect with them on a regular basis. So that was a really time demand on me, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to build a relationship at the same time filing bills. I filed 25 bills and got 10 bills passed out of the state house, which is a no small feat, especially as a freshman Democrat.
Yeah. Now I have to ask, who took the best selfie?
Who took the best selfie? I took the best selfie. I was taking the selfie with everybody. In fact, there was an article that was published in the Fort Worth Report saying Representative Bhojani is making himself known in the Texas legislature one selfie at a time.
There you go.
They showed multiple selfies and all that. So it was really nice.
Very cool. So what was it's great. You put forward, I think you said 25 bills, 10 of them passed out of the House. In your freshman year, you probably learned a lot. What were some of the biggest obstacles that you faced doing all that stuff?
Yeah, obstacle is, I think it's just sometimes, when people perceive you as partisan, then sometimes it gets really difficult to think through, different. And then another thing was that if it's not about what a state representative would think, how would it be perceived by their constituents, and how, would they support something? I filed a lot of bills that were discussing religious freedom for all Texans, and some of them came to me and said, look, I mean, my constituents may not perceive this well. I hope you don't mind if I vote no for it. And I was like, absolutely, you do what you want to do, right? Because I was really, I wanted to make sure that there's space for everybody, right? I'm not saying that there's only one way to do things. And then so the obstacle was maybe the time also, because everything happens at the end of the legislative session towards like April, May. And so I think that gets really, really tricky, because you're up until 2 o'clock, in a committee hearing, and then you're going on the House floor next morning, or you have another committee hearing at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. So we're on lack of sleep, and lack of just getting family time and all that in Austin. But that's where I saw a lot of opportunities to really hone in with my colleagues. And so I did Member Appreciation Day at the Capitol. I did Staff Appreciation Day at the Capitol, where we had puppies and popsicles outside the Capitol, for people to pet and eat popsicles also. And did a lot of events like that would really bring people together regardless of party affiliation. Because I think we can be pigeonholed in our party, and I think I don't like that, because Texas is not about blue state or red state or party or this that. It's just we all have different ways of getting to the solution, but we all want what's best for Texas, and we have so much more in common. And if we focus on that, we'll be united, with one front and agenda, as opposed to let's talk about what we don't have in common, because that's going to divide us more.
Yeah. That's interesting that you mentioned the story of, I guess, I assume it's a Republican representative coming to you and saying, hey, my constituents aren't probably it's not going to look good for for me to my constituents if I vote yes. So I hope you don't mind if I vote no. That's interesting that happens as I don't know, I think a regular person that just sort of pays attention to the news, even if they pay close attention to the Texas state news and the Texas state legislature, it seems like there's an image that people want to present through the news or whatever, that it's cats and dogs, right? Republicans hate Democrats, Democrats hate Republicans. There's never any working together. Obviously, there is some crossover. There's bipartisanship, of course, and they try to present that. But it's still surprising to hear that there's that sort of like, candid talk. Like, hey, I might support this, but my constituents, they're not going to like it. So
that you're right about that. That's one thing that I learned a lot during the session, that 80 to 90% of the legislation that the Texas House of Representatives work on are bipartisan. I think, if I didn't know this coming, and I thought, again, like you, there's always constant fighting between the parties, but it's not that way. Like 80-90% is a pretty big number. We had like almost 10,000 bills filed in the House last session, right? Out of that, maybe 1,100, 1,200 bills passed, but 90% of them are bipartisan. And the way that I also dealt with them is that, so out of the 25 bills that I filed, each one of them is joint author, because there's 4 joint authors and any bill can have. It's limited, right? So I had 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans joint author all my bills, to really hit home the point. This is not partisan rhetoric. This is just something that's really good for the state of Texas. And that's one of the reasons why I was able to pass a number of bills in the House as a freshman. And I think, like I said, I have really amazing collegial relationship with all my colleagues, regardless of the party affiliation. And we have a lot of good, meaningful conversations, regardless of what the media may portray to certain, to detriment, I think, for us. I think we work well together. It's not as partisan as Washington, let's put it that way, right? We got a lot of stuff done.
Yeah.
And think about it, right? All Democrats voted for Speaker Phelan, right?
Yeah.
That would never happen in Washington. So just think about like how, we work well together. And another thing that I'm really, really proud of, and I really was honored to be named the chairman of a subcommittee on criminal jurisprudence. And it was a committee on criminal procedure. And so that was a really phenomenal, treat for me, because I don't know any other freshman that was named chairman of a subcommittee, right? So that's, and especially being a freshman and a Democrat, that's a rare opportunity.
Yeah, I want to ask you more about that. That's sort of one of my questions. But before we get down that road, My understanding is that when a freshman passes their first bill, there's a something happens in the house. There's a little bit of hazing that occurs. It's
Yes.
sort of a tradition. Um,
Yes.
I was not aware of this until recently. Did you get hazed a little bit?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What
By
do
a
they
lot of
do?
members. Yes.
What do they do?
Yeah, I guess, so my desk mate is Representative Jarvis Johnson. And so he would not see me as much on my desk, and I would just be sort of running around on the House floor. I mean, you have to understand how the House works, right? You need support from people in the committee. And so I'm always working, right? Because my bills are going through multiple, like, so we had 16 bills heard in a committee, which is a lot for freshmen, especially like putting the first, all that. And so I'm always trying to talk to my colleagues that are sitting on the committee to say, hey, can you support this legislation? It's really good for the state of Texas, and why not and whatnot. So I'm always looking for the next person that it's on my list, because my staff, prepared me for, all this. Hey, talk to this person, this person, this person about these bills. And so and they gave me a card. So I would just always be on the look to look at that. And so he was like, hey, why are you never on your desk? And why are you always running around and back and forth? I just, sort of told them, I was jokingly that, so I went to climb Mount Everest base camp in October of last year.
Oh wow!
And so I was just telling them, hey, I'm getting training for that, right? Just running around and going up and down the stairs at the Capitol. But honestly, it was just because of my constituents sent me there to do hard work, right?
Yeah.
And they know my character, they know how much I've worked hard for them, and so I wanted to make sure that translates into bills that I can take home and bring back home and say, hey, look, this is what I've done for our constituents and for the state of Texas, because the bills that we file are not only for a district and for the entire state of Texas. And the bills, some bills that I passed are going to really make the economy really amazing, with apprenticeship programs and the workforce development is really important for us. So that was one of them. And then yeah, there were others that kept on, sort of hazing me on the work ethic that I have, right? Just working hard. And they were saying, where's it coming from? So I was like, it's coming from my faith, my family, and my colleagues, because I see my colleagues, they're also working as hard as I am. And so that really energizes me. And I feed off of positive energy, not negative energy. So I sort of resign from a place where there's a lot of negative energy going on, and I cling to people that are positive. And I've had really great relationship with a lot of good representatives in House and senators. Actually, that's another thing that, one of the senators made a comment that you've been here in the Senate floor more than I've ever done in my entire time as a state House representative, in that week.
Yeah.
Because, I've got 10 bills out of the House. I want to do the same thing in the Senate, but the time is so short, and it's a different ballgame altogether in the Senate.
Yeah. So what is the dynamic between the House and the Senate? How does that, what did you experience?
Yeah, so I spend a lot of my energy in working with representatives in the House, building, across the party line and whatnot. And I wish I'd done a lot more on the Senate side. But through the things that I did, I think I built some really good relationship on the Senate side. For example, Senator Lois Colcourse has been really instrumental in helping me pass one of my really good bills. And we just met through one of the bills that she had filed early on, and I was asked to speak on as a press conference on that bill. And the press conference wasn't meant to make her bill look good. It was the other way around, and I felt uneasy about that. I felt like as a colleague, I shouldn't be speaking publicly about somebody else's bill without conferring with them privately. And so I asked my staff, can you make an appointment with Senator? And they did. And I met with the Senator, and it was supposed to be a 15-minute meeting, ended up being a 45-minute meeting. And we got to know each other. We got to know, like, we're business owners, we have, similar family structure and similar passion to serve our communities. And so that was really, really helpful. And through that relationship, and she really appreciated that, because she said, look, you're a freshman, right? You're setting an example of how the House used to be run 20 years ago, and it should be run now. And colleagues need to give each other notices before they go and slam, their bills publicly. And so she really appreciated that, and I was really awesome. I was really honored to work with her during the session.
Yeah.
But the dynamic is a little bit different. They run differently. It could be a little bit more partisan. Again, I didn't spend time in the Senate as much to know, but I've had good relationship with most of the senators. That all of my bills passed in committee unanimously. So I was really honored because of that, and sort of really signaling that I'm not here to work on just one issue. I'm here to work for the entire state of Texas on things that we can really agree that are in common.
Yeah. Um, I want to ask you about the apparent Republican infighting that's going on in Texas. You mentioned Dade Phelan. There's a lot of infighting going on there. Not what you think about Dade Phelan specifically, but the I don't know. Maybe it's happening in the Democrat Party too. I don't see it as much. Maybe because Texas is seen as a red state, and so maybe that's just where the news focuses a little bit more. But I want to hear your thoughts on the that Republican infighting, and you as a committee chair, right? And you're a Democrat committee chair. And one of the things that there's so much Republican infighting on is giving Democrats committee chairs, right?
Hmm.
And so I want to hear your thoughts on all of that because it sounds like you have a real, maybe a unique view on it based on your experience.
Yeah, I've seen some mailers that have gone out against my colleagues, and it's really unfortunate because they're picking one small issue about a religious freedom agenda or something that I filed as a resolution for Ramadan or Iftar, and it's really unfortunate because it's bigotry, right? And it's really a small minority of people in Texas that think about that. uh, I mean, we are a state where all religions are respected, celebrated, and protected, right? Our constitution protects that for us. And if you ask a lot of people, they'll be like, yeah, I mean, they don't care about somebody's religion. It's just give me your merit. It should be based on merit and what you can really do for the community. Like I said, you asked me why do I do so much? I do because of my religion. My religion tells me, all religions say that, right? Do good, to other people, right? Love thy neighbor, and love thy neighbor is a concept not just in the Bible, but in the Quran, in the Torah, in the Gita. There's so many concepts like that. It doesn't say love thy neighbor so long as they're Christian or so
Yeah.
long as they're Jewish, or so long as they're Muslim. It says love thy neighbor, period, full
Yeah.
stop, right? And so I feel like that's something that those values need to be resonated, and they do resonate with more than a majority of Texans. I think it is because we're taking a small slice of population that vote only in the Republican primary, and even in that, it's a minority. So I try to avoid partisan politics. I try to just say, look, I mean, the people that I've worked with in the House, like Speaker Phelan and others that are getting these mailers, are really phenomenal individuals and great legislators. I would love them for them to be back so that way we can continue to work on uniting Texas in a way that we can move Texas forward without this sort of in party fighting or even religious fighting. I'm just really honored to work with them, and I see that it's really unfortunate that they're getting these attacks because of these.
Yeah. So I want to be respectful of your time, but before I let you go, I want to get an idea of what you passed. You got 10 bills out of the House out of 25. I think that sounds pretty good. Uh, I think there's 15 things that you may want to try to accomplish the next time around, but I'm sure you're adding to that list.
Absolutely.
And the next session, what are your biggest goals? Outside of, continuing your same path of, bipartisanship and, building those relationships legislatively, what are you hoping to accomplish?
Yeah, I am gonna have a lot more staff this time around because I want to accomplish a lot. I was celebrating Hanukkah with the Jewish community a couple of months ago in my district, and I told them let's do a Jewish Day at the Capitol, right? Let's bring all the Jewish community members at the Capitol and celebrate them, recognize them on the House floor, and just so that way they need to be every religion needs to be recognized and celebrated in that capacity, and so I look forward to bringing a lot of, like, for example, even school board trustees. Last session was really, difficult for all of them, with the voucher programs and all that. I think I want to try to celebrate the successes that they've had in the school and the public school system and trying to see how we can really bring them on board. They do so much service. Like, these people don't get paid,
Yeah.
right? School board trustees and superintendents are great, and they do get paid, but at the end of the day, they spend so much time in educating our leaders of tomorrow, and we want to make sure that they're recognized for that. So I want to try to have a lot more of that, and we're going to hire a lot more staff. We're going to double the amount of bills that we file. So the goal is, instead of 25, we file 50 bills this time around, and try to double everything in a way that it has to make sense. But this time around, like I said, I can file bills very early, so I can file bills as early as November,
Oh, wow.
and I'll take advantage of that. So now I've got in my mind, I'm like, I've got 2 more months after I file these bills to really work in a bipartisan way in this legislation. try to really move them forward. And now I know the process, right? As a freshman, I didn't know, like, okay, we're only going to get 2 weeks to pass things out of the Senate, where I've worked 4 months in the House. You see, like, so there's such a stark contrast, right? And I'm sure senators feel the same way, that they work in the Senate, but they only have a couple of weeks to pass in the House. So I think I want to start building those relationships early on, that those senators that I did not get a chance to build those relationships. And I'll tell you one sort of secret to my success has been, I've talked to a lot of senators, and and they're busy folks. They have huge districts and all that. And so, I would be just, sort of standing outside the Senate floor trying to wait for senators, to talk to them about my bills. What really helped me was actually going to their staff. So instead of, I would wait for the senator, and I was like, let me just go. And I just thought about this. Let's go to their office and talk to their person that, looks at the education committee or the healthcare committee. And I spoke to them and I said, here's my bill idea. What do you think about it? And first of all, they were like, we're surprised that a member of the House is coming to visit us, as a staff member. We've never had that. And second is that they're like, yeah, this bill makes sense. I mean, maybe this amendment or that amendment would fix it, and they would be okay with that. I'm like, let's do it. And so that really helped me out, give me a little bit more sort of face time with the staff members and trying to see what I could do for the state of Texas. And, I've really enjoyed doing that. I continue doing that, to work hard. And that's what I can promise my constituents and everybody, that I'm going to continue to work hard to not only build relationships, because that's how it happens, but also to work hard for new legislative ideas, working on mental health for our youth as well, working on the foster care program that may need a lot of help here, and we're going to get a lot more kids coming in to our universe, where we need to really help them, right? Because 29,000 women were impregnated just by rapes, right? And so if we're going to bring these children into our universe, we need to really care for them as well, right? So things like that, I want to really think outside the box. And whenever I go, I try to connect pockets of communities to their state representatives and their elected officials, because I see so often there's a huge community that is just like the Tongan community. There's a huge, Euless is home to the third largest Tongan community outside Tonga. It's a Pacific island. They're not really engaged politically. I go to their church and say, hey, I'm your state representative. What can I do to help you? And sometimes they'll say, oh, I've got a family in this part of the world, that part of the world. And I'm like, I don't do federal law, but I can sort of come and connect you with your member of Congress.
Sure.
Because sometimes I'm just connecting with it, and I knock on doors, for the last few weeks, and people are like, oh, the light is so bad on my street. Okay, let me connect you with your city council member in Arlington or Euless, and that way you can talk to them. But it's just that for me, it's about just how do I connect these people that have no access to their elected officials. Now they have access, but
sure,
not actually access, right? So that's why that's what I've tried to focus on, and we'll continue doing that this year.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it is difficult. A lot of people don't know sort of where to begin with that stuff. It's really great that you spend your time doing that, even though you personally can't do anything about it, helping them find the right person. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, Representative Bhojani, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today. Do you have a social media or website that you want people to find?
I do. So the website is bhojanifortexas.com. My last name Bhojani, FORTEXAS.com, and social media is my first name, last name, TX. So Salman Bhojani TX, and that's where all my social media is. I want to let you know one more thing, which is really, really fun for me. I've never played football in my life.
Okay.
This last session, there was a football game at Kyle Field between the freshmen and the veteran legislatures, and I really had a really great time, and I scored a touchdown as well. And so I was really, really honored, to play. And these things really give us a better flavor for, legislators as their personal lives, and that was really good. So anytime I can do that, I really feel honored to be able to play well and do good for our community.
Well, now I have to ask, what position did you play?
I was a receiver.
Okay. Wow.
I was sort of, yeah.
Sure.
I don't know too much about football, but I think, so there was somebody that was the quarterback, and they threw a pass at me, and then I just went in and just ran as fast as I could and scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
That's what they told me. I didn't know how to play football before. But I said, hey, I'm going to throw it to you, and you just go and just try to avoid people to come. And so I tackled a couple of people and then just went in and just scored a touchdown. It was really awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know you're in the area, and I know that the Cowboys probably need some help. So maybe it's worth trying out.
Yeah. We'd love to, yeah. But ping pong is my favorite sport, just for the record.
What is?
Ping pong.
Ping pong. Okay. Well, if I ever meet you in person, I'll challenge you to a game, and I promise you'll win. So it'll be worth your while. Representative Bhojani, I really appreciate you taking the time. We'll put the links for your website and social media down in the description below, and I look forward to next time.
Thank you so much for having me.